Hey guys, so I wanted to talk about a little bit about a video I just seen talking about how springs bow and stuff when they're under pressure. Yes, this is true. They do bow, they do twist, they do this, they do that. I wanted to show you what our spring does when it's actually compressed farther than it does in a clutch. This is farther, and we'll just check this out. So that spring is compressed farther than what it should be. And the only reason it's kicked over is because I got that notch on the other side where this, I have it in a hole, kind of like it'd be in a helix or a secondary. I have that notch in the hole, and look, so it's kicking it over purposely. That just shows you that this is purposely done, and that when this is in a hole in a helix, it's not going to do that. Let's see. So when you compress these springs down, even when they're naturally pressed and when they're not over compressed, either way, you have minimum 2 rings that overlap and touch each other. This is normal. This is how a spring's supposed to operate. This is normal. Now, I want you to keep these 2 rings or 3 rings, in mind when I show you the next step. So as you can see here, I have an abundance of helixes, our helix, and then competitor's helix, competitor springs. This is our spring, actually. Then this spring. So anyway, I just showed you this spring, right? Keep in mind what I said about the spring overlapping and touching. This is normal. Let's talk about a competitor helix. See that spring rubbing there? The reason why spring bind is a bad thing is, number one, it eats into the helix, okay? It eats into there. Now, over time, this just gets excessive and excessive and excessive, and then what happens is, those of you who've seen it in your clutches, you know what I'm talking about. When you see it, you see that it's rubbed to a spring. That spring will start to get hung up in there, and then it will bind, because this spring, as it wants to kind of bow out and stuff as it's compressed, which you just seen ours, it don't bow all that much, and that was forcefully bowed on purpose, just to kind of exaggerate things a little bit. But once the spring bows, because they do bow, every spring does, they do bow, and once you get that bowed over and that groove all wore out, then the spring hangs up in there and doesn't want to allow the secondary to return. That's why spring binding is bad. So we solved that by cutting out the helix, okay? Now, the video that I seen, if you've seen that video, you know what I'm talking about. But I want to educate here. As you see, we're going to use this spring. So he put it in and showed you, once it's in the hole in there, that it moves all around a little bit. This is normal, okay? Okay, sorry, one-handed. You go to theirs, and it fits in there real nice and tight, but it also still moves in. It still moves in there. Not as much as ours, but it does, okay? Well, remember when I said the coils touch when you compress it? Look down in the helix. There's a lip, there's a shelf. When you compress that spring down in there, you get a couple of rings down in there that are compressed on each other. And once it's compressed, it locks it. Even just doing this by hand, and I'm not even in the hole. There we go. Just by doing this with hand, when you twist it, look, it does not move in that helix. Look at the spring. It does not move. And that's because when you compress it down, it locks into our little shelf that's designed here. That's designed purposely to lock the spring and keep it from rocking, like he was showing you in the video. The reason why the spring was rocking is because it wasn't compressed and kicked out in the helix like it should be to keep it from rocking. That's why we didn't cut the helix all the way down. We did cut the helix all the way down in the first few test ones and found that the spring rocks over and still touches. Okay? We played with different shelf sizes and everything and got it just right to where it doesn't rock. So the video you seen was from an uneducated person that really don't know and understand clutches like we do. We're going to talk about some of the things he talked about as well. He showed a secondary with spring rub. This is a brand new, never used secondary. I put these used things in here for a video I did the other day. This is a brand new, unused secondary. See that spring rub in there? That's from the OEM spring. The OEM spring is what touches in there and rubs. But the clutch you seen, he didn't have the OEM spring, and when they took it apart, it didn't have the OEM spring, so they wouldn't know that. Those spring marks were in there before our spring was put in. And I can prove that simply by this and simply by those of you who have our stuff. But now we're going to put a spring in here. Look at how our spring, and I'll get the red one in here, it's not going to kick over and touch that. Do you know why? Because our spring, when compressed, it touches down in here and locks the spring just like it does in our helix over here and locks the spring to keep it from twisting. So I wish this gentleman that said that would be a little more educated, and I'd be happy to educate him. But if you take this spring, same thing. Same spring, same thing. It does that. It kicks over and locks in. And yes, you're going to have some rubbing down in here. And you're going to have some rubbing down in here. Those are totally fine because the spring isn't twisting or anything up here or down here. Okay? It's not rubbing or it's not twisting down here. It's twisting in these coils here. And in these coils here, that's where your helix ends up sitting. So rubbing and binding in the helix, is it a huge deal? No, it's not. But once it gets worse, this helix here has 50 miles on it. I just took it out of an overland. You guys have seen my used helixes on video. I just built a clutch with a used helix and showed you no spring rub and anything. But anyway, this one has 50 miles on it. And as it wears in and gets worse over time, which this is already gotta be, I don't know, I can fit my finger in the groove, so I could get the calipers out and measure it if I wanted to. But anyway, I know this is kind of a ramble video too. Just trying to educate you guys from somebody who does this for a living and knows. Do I do this as a sales tactic? No, I do not. Did I have to fix the helix like nobody else did? No, I didn't have to fix that. Me and Bill didn't have to fix that. The reason why we did fix it is to get better life out of the spring and the helix. That's why we fixed it. Did we fix it for a performance standpoint? No, because the only thing spring binding has an effect on is back shifting the clutch. Not shifting it out. It has an effect on back shifting. That's when you try to return it and the spring catches in those holes. So no, we didn't use that as a sales tactic. We just did it for life expectancy and longevity. Guys, we have customers running thousands and thousands and thousands of miles with our parts, where our competitors is saying that they're only seeing 2,500 to 3,000 miles before you have to replace a helix. That come out of their mouth, not mine. What I'm telling you is ours is going to last a long time. And just so you guys know, I put those in there to do a video to show wear patterns, if you remember that video the other day. But anyway, and this is for a Z-Force 800, a 2019 and down, actually 2021 and down. But yeah, guys, I wanted to show you the reason why we cut out the helix. And they're saying it's smaller on the ramp, it gives you different wear. Okay. It's not that much smaller, bro. It's not. How do I show this? Hold on. I'll try. I'm one-handed. It's not even that much smaller. So why are we arguing? And in that video, he had stated the spring cutting in here, but then we're cutting this out anyway, so what's the difference? The difference is when that spring does get shifted out and starts to cock over like it does naturally as a spring, it doesn't rub a gouge in here, and then the spring, I'm going to call them rings, I don't know, whatever you call them, the rings don't get caught in here and go boom, boom, and then keep it from shifting back. That's why. So hopefully you guys understand this, but that's why. Now guys, I want to talk about helixes getting stuck on the shaft. Those of you who watch my videos know I've already touched this, but the gentleman we're rebuttaling video 2 obviously didn't watch my videos. And here's a perfect example. This is a dirty clutch that I'm building right now. And I had to fight one of those helixes off, okay? I've had to fight mine off. You guys have seen that. Let me show you. I'm going to tell you what happens here. See? It doesn't even want to go down on. Okay? Theirs doesn't even want to go down on. Okay? And actually theirs is kind of pushed it a little too hard there. The reason that is, this is a steel shaft. Steel, as it rusts and gets dirty, it swells and then takes up tolerance. You have to clean that. So yes, sometimes you can. And those of you who have seen me pull that helix off, those helixes off, and even stock helixes off, you've seen in my videos where they're tough to pull up. And you guys have also seen that I usually, it's not here today, but I normally have a torch. And what happens, what you can do is when it does that, you can heat up the helix and it swells up and pop. You guys have seen that a bunch of times on me doing it right here in this general area. That's how you get those off. And it takes just a little heat. Sometimes you go click and pop, and other times you have to heat it. And I even have a puller set up. I have a special puller set up somewhere here. It's right in there, a special puller setup that I built to pull those off if need be. And that's every helix. There's no helix that causes that on purpose. It's just the nature of steel, right? We all know that steel swells and temperatures and rust and everything plays into variables. And the thing is, you can't cut these out to keep that from happening. Because what you'll have is a rocking back and forth and a chatter in the clutch, and you don't want clutch chatter. Now, let's talk about who needs a clutch kit. Do you need a clutch kit from the factory? Depends upon who you are. If it's a C-Force machine and you don't mind it not being smooth, a lot of people don't. No, you can run them. CV Tech, I've said it a million times, is the best clutch that CFMOTO could put in their machines. I've said that millions of times, guys. You guys can verify in the comments. I've said that. I've never said these clutches are junk, but they do have quirks that can be easily fixed and solved and get more life out of them. CV Tech says these clutches are good for 5,000 miles. Well, with some of the mods, and I've even seen them stock, not touched, go to 8, 9, 10,000 miles. I know others claim they haven't seen it. It's out there. It's everywhere. I've done videos. A lot of people have talked about it. You can get a lot of miles out of these clutches, especially when they're clutched and set up right. Why does everybody want a clutch kit? Well, when clutches are set up for the factory, they're not set up to be the best. They're not set up to be the worst. They're set up to suit 1,000 different use cases. So they're kind of a mediocre setup, right? And what happens is you get some belt slip in there. If you're trying to, let's say you're trying to pull a trailer, you got a U-Force, you're on a farm, you're trying to pull heavy loads. Doing that stock, it's not that good in the clutch because you have belt slip because the secondary spring ain't got enough pressure on the belt. You're not getting enough RPMs to keep your belt cool, and the list goes on and on and on. Who are clutch kits for? Clutch kits are for those people who want the machine to be super smooth. Is it not being super smooth a bad thing? No, it's just annoying for some people. I, for one of those people, am one of those people. We've sold a lot of clutch kits, and 90% of those clutch kits were for people that want smooth. Now, you guys know that when you come here to R.N.G Performance, we don't sell you stuff you don't need. How many of you called me and asked me for a stage 3? We don't do stages, but you've asked for it, and that meaning our complete kit. And I talk to you, and I see what you're doing. And when you tell me, hey, I'm just stock tires, I just want it smooth, all you need is a primary kit. That is who we are. We don't oversell. We don't upsell no one. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of comments down here to verify it. So best assured that when you call R.N.G Performance, we're not going to sell you our whole kit. We do have competitors that when you call them and tell them the same thing, they want to sell you a stage 3. Not everybody needs a stage 3, and that's kind of where the problems start to become happening, okay? You put a stage 3 that's made for whatever, mud, trail, whatever, you put it on stock tires, you're going to have clutch problems because of a bunch of different things we're not going to go on about in the video because it'll make it long, but you're going to have problems. Some of those problems are going to be heat in the clutch because the clutch isn't working right because it was designed for a bigger tire, or it was designed for something that you said you were doing but you're not doing, et cetera, et cetera. Hope that makes sense to you. I'm just trying to keep this professional and short. So tuning a clutch is an art. It's a science. There's not a lot of companies out there that have helixes. And in fact, half the people he had mentioned in that video carry R.N.G clutch kits. So we'll just say that. But so hopefully this helps you guys understand the saga over the spring bind. Is it the worst thing on earth? No. Is it going to hinder performance? No. The only thing it hinders is part longevity and back shift. That's all it hinders. Now, you can take your cover off and you can see your clutch. You hit the gas and it go wee, wee, and it's opening and closing just fine. The spring binding might not have gotten to the point where it's bad enough. And I know in older videos, I've showed you guys some really bad helixes, even stock helixes. Oh, I wanted to mention about the stock spring. Here's a stock spring. Hold on. Look at that. This would be in the stock location. Stock spring. Look at where those are lined up at. Okay? Stock spring does this. Our springs do not do that. But our springs do touch the outer side. And you could see some grooves there, but so does the stock spring. Stock spring will do that too as it shifts over, because the stock spring does twist. Just the way that it is. Again, are these all bad things? No. The worst part is back shift and part longevity. That's the biggest. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest factor. We want our parts to last you so you don't have to buy them every 3,000 miles. We want our parts to outlast you in that machine. We want you, when you sell that machine in 10, 15 years, we want our parts to still be living in there if we can. And that's what we do. We work every day to do little minor tweaks and things to the clutch parts to make them live that much longer. Is it a sales tactic? I guess maybe it is. Can the other clutch builders do the same thing? Yes, they can. Why don't they? I don't know. But according to the video I just saw, we know why they don't, because they think it's a good thing, and it's not. When your helix is designed and cut out properly, it's not. If you cut the whole helix all the way through, and here I am giving out secrets, but it's no secret. Anybody that looks at that helix knows exactly what we did. When you cut the helix all the way through, you still have the spring rub, and the spring does kick over, like mentioned in the other video. So there you go, guys. I hope you take this with what it's worth. I know I'm about tired of all the drama and the back and forth, and all it really is that we're kicking ass and people can't handle it. So all you gotta do is just do better and worry about your own customers and your own parts instead of my parts. Peace out and God bless. We'll see you in the next one.